Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canada Truth Channel, where Canada, the illusion of freedom and system of control, is exposed. Today's video, the aftermath. Emotions are running pretty high here today in Alberta, in Canada, and around the world. People are bewildered and shocked that the people of Canada would elect another liberal globalist prime minister after the last 10 years of disaster. There are a lot of Canadians out there playing the blame game right now. Of course, there is it's Donald Trump's fault. The tariffs, the threat to Canadian democracy, the 51st state comments. There are the people out there saying Pierre Poilievre threw away the campaign in the last weeks and days. And yet others saying it's all Jagmeet Singh's fault for destroying the NDP party and having all of those voters vote Liberal. Then we have the blame the boomers crowd. Blame the boomers in Ontario and Quebec that have houses paid for, numbered days, and don't give a shit about generations to come. There's also the people out there saying only about 50% of people in Canada voted. So the lack of voter turnout caused this result. I would say, personally, these are all contributing factors. They are contributing factors resulting from the symptoms, resulting from the root causes of our current situation in Canada. What are those root causes? Well, number one, as I have shown you in many previous videos, it starts with the Constitution Act 1867, and it started when a copy of the British North America Act 1867 came to Canada with a fraudulent preamble. Canadians, for our foundational documents, our Confederation and our Constitution, the original copy has never been brought to Canada because it was never Canadian. It has always been and always will be a private act of the British Imperial Parliament. That is why that constitutional amendments could only come from the British Parliament until 1982. And the Canada Act scheme. That being said, another part of the blame game is people don't know who Mark Carney actually is. And once again, it's much easier emotionally for a person's ego, for their pride and their arrogance to blame others for what is their responsibility. What do I mean by that? Well, I believe that every human has the responsibility to evolve as best they can to become a better human being and to leave the world in a better place for the next generation. Part of that responsibility is participation and let me rephrase that, informed participation in the governance of our Canada and our province and our community, for that matter. That's our civic duty. The vast majority of Canadians are unaware of the fact that the Constitution Act 1867 was never a constitution, and changing the name from the British North America Act 1867 to the Constitution Act 1867 does not make it a constitution. Now, for anyone that is properly educated and informed about the legal system in Canada, they will recognize very quickly that the Confederated country of Canada is a constitutional monarchy, which is a form of democracy. Okay? The only problem with that is that Canada never legally and lawfully confederated, number one. Number two, the British North America Act was never a constitution written by the people of Canada for the people of Canada. It has always been a private bill through the British Imperial Parliament for the British Imperial Parliament to govern their newly united colony, the Dominion of Canada. And number three, they don't even follow their own acts and statutes. Let me elaborate. Once again, I'm sorry to review this for those of you that have seen previous videos and understand this information, but it's part of my explanation of what happened and why it happened. So, first end note, The enacting clause was repealed by the Statute Law Revision Act 1893. It read as follows: Be it therefore enacted and declared by the Queen's most excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the Lords Spiritual and Temporal and Commons, in this present Parliament assembled, and by the authority of the same as follows. The enacting clause of our foundational document was repealed in 1893 by the people that wrote it and the people, the only people with the lawful authority to amend it. We can see Section 2 repealed. Section 2. The provisions of this act referring to Her Majesty the Queen extend also to the heirs and successors of Her Majesty Kings and Queens of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Repealed. 1893. So all of the provisions, the executive government and authority of and over Canada no longer extended to the heirs and successors of Queen Victoria, who died in 1901. Her executive authority and government of and over Canada died with her. So for people to say, I've read the platform of this candidate or this party or that party in Canada. I've attended the rally. I've done this. I've done that. I'm an informed voter. Are you? Were you aware that everything we have taught and believe about Canada to this day from 1867 has been deliberate deception and fraud? Are you or were you aware that since December 11th, 1931, after the enactment of the Statute of Westminster, that all provinces have been autonomous states, and that the Canadian government didn't properly inform the people of Canada of their newly found sovereign status in each province? These are the underlying problems. And lastly, and probably one of the biggest problems, is the fact that the people of Canada desperately cling to the hope that if only we can elect the Conservatives or whatever party and whatever politician, that Canada will be saved. Listen to what they're saying. Personally, I don't believe Pierre Poilievre was ever going to win this election. And once Trudeau resigned and Carney was installed, I was absolutely sure of it. Because then the seeds were planted, were beginning to be planted. Mark Carney can stand up to Donald Trump. I heard it every day for the last month. The sovereignty of Canada depends on this election, which the irony is unbelievable that that psychological operation and propaganda campaign of the direct threat Donald Trump imposed on Canadian sovereignty, unbeknownst to the ill-informed and uneducated voter, they were manipulated through their emotions to elect the very threat, the greatest threat to Canadian sovereignty, which is electing another member of the World Economic Forum to be Prime Minister. The irony is unbelievable. It's wow. But clinging to the hope, okay, guys, we got a little bit closer. We increased conservative seats. Next time it's ours. That carrot dangling. Just wait, just wait. Well, that hasn't worked out so well historically up to this point. Keep in mind, a government never gives back to the people something that they haven't already taken away. Yes, it may not have been that political party or prime minister, but a previous government has already taken away that right or increased that tax or created the new regulation. The next government might say, well, we're going to repeal that. But you're being deceived because they're just putting you back one step backwards, two steps forward, because the next government is going to do even worse. And that's where we are today, and we will only our lives will not improve until we address these root causes. A 2-minute search will bring up Mark Carney and the World Economic Forum right on their own webpage, and you can read everything about Mark Carney. A 2-minute search, Mark Carney book, pretty simple search, will bring you up to values. And although I don't encourage people to buy this book and support Mark Carney, I believe he's wealthy enough as it is. There are lots of reviews and lots of people talking about what was in this book. And he doesn't hide who he is or what he believes. It's right there for the world to see. Unfortunately, for many people in Canada, the indoctrinated and brainwashed people succumbed to the psychological operation and propaganda campaign for Canadian sovereignty. The irony is it's ridiculous. If you're interested, Frank Vaughan, I know it's a little late now, but Frank Vaughan did a review on values, and much like myself, showed you who Mark Carney is and what he stands for in his own words. But the fear propaganda ignited the predetermined emotional reaction in order to result in the predetermined outcome, which was Carney winning the election. You could see them planting the seeds. Pierre Poilievre goes from whatever it was, I don't pay attention to polls really, but 25 points above to under pretty much as soon as Mark Carney was installed as the Liberal leader and de facto prime minister. And then the polls were up and down, all part of the PSYOP. But that seed was planted a month ago that Pierre Poilievre's numbers were plummeting. That seed was already planted. Most people didn't notice, but this is why it's important to understand psychological operations and admit and acknowledge that they're being used by our governments against the people who hired them to represent us. I believe that attacks are certainly coming. The propaganda and fear campaign is going to be ramped up against Alberta, northern British Columbia, and Saskatchewan. Our freedoms are going to be stolen by de facto illegal and unlawful government. Our money will be stolen through deliberate deception and fraud. So, for all the doom and gloomers out there, and all the people upset and baffled and stunned, it's time to take responsibility for the governance of our country, specifically starting with each province. There will be a referendum in Alberta for separation. It may come from Daniel Smith, and if it doesn't, it certainly will come from the people of Alberta. Because I believe that the fact is known to many people in Western Canada that we will never get a fair deal. No matter who's in power, things might improve a little here and there, but we are never going to get our fair shake, and we are never going to get our bang for the buck from the equalization payments that are extorted from us, that we pay for the privilege of being governed by people that hate us. That's ridiculous to me. So I think with this election result, more and more people are going to be aware. We cannot vote our way out of this problem we're in. It requires ground up reform by the people for the people in a legal, lawful, and peaceful manner. It's not an impossible task. It will require effort and dedication. Just like anything worthwhile requires effort and dedication. So now it's up to the people, number one, of Alberta, and number two, of Canada, whether they're willing to continue to cling to this false hope or to take personal responsibility for the governance of our communities, our regions, our provinces, and Canada. So expect more propaganda, more attacks, more squeezing, more regulations, more acts to silence us, to disarm us, to collapse what is left of Canada. Because that is the goal of the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, NATO, the World Health Organization. These are the faces that we're allowed to see that are behind this globalist agenda. They don't hide it. Agenda 2021, Agenda 2030, they're publicly available for you to read their plans. But it's getting so difficult to even survive in their system of control. People are too scared to stand up. People don't have the time to properly educate themselves. And none of that's going to change until we change it ourselves. So please, if you haven't seen previous videos, educate yourself, follow the links I provide, develop your own level of knowledge and understanding so you are able to make truly informed decisions about where we are and where we want to go as people of our provinces and people that believe in the dream of Canada, the illusion of Canada that we were all taught to believe in. It's up to us now. No one's coming to save us. Thanks for watching.